Welcome everyone to back to the Hyperion future, where we've been and where we're going. And we're going to go back about 30 years. 1991, a great year. The average price of gas was $1.12. Apartheid in South Africa was abolished. Dances with Wolves won Best Picture, which Kevin Costner decided he should follow up inexplicably with the movie Waterworld. The internet was made available to unrestricted commercial use, because until that point, you had to be a university or work for the military. The number of computers attached to the net reached 1 million with a M. And the company that created Essbase, Arbor Software, was formed. But the story actually started another 10 years before that. To honor Hyperion, we must start with its humble beginnings. Circa 1981, Robert Thompson formed the company Information Reporting Services, IMRS, that would ultimately become what I like to think of as Hyperion's father. And ironically, Thompson realized that the old way of using mainframes, where we had a central computer that everyone accessed, was slow and expensive. And he thought, if I could develop a client-based software that ran on everyone's individual machines, it would let multiple users access finance data using their personal computers. And then CEOs and financial analysts would rejoice. So Microcontrol was born, and later was rebuilt for Windows and was renamed to Hyperion. In 1994, IMRS would adopt a child named Pillar. And in 1995, after much success of that new Hyperion product, IMRS changed its name to Hyperion Software Corporation, and they changed the name of their flagship product from Hyperion to Hyperion Enterprise. And this was all happening out on the East Coast, kind of circa Stamford, Connecticut. Arbor Software was created, kind of the spouse in this relationship, in 1991 to build Essbase. Essbase was born in 91, but wasn't introduced to the world until 1992, 28 years ago. It was first introduced on the operating system, this is not a joke, IBM OS 2. It used both Excel and Lotus 123 and ran on Windows and Macs, something that they then forgot about for around 28 years. But Essbase had this grand start where it could essentially run everywhere. Small useless bit of trivia, the reason it ran on OS 2 as its first operating system is it was built to be multi-threaded, and at the time you couldn't do that in a Windows environment. So Arbor was this young, dare I say good-looking, upstart from Silicon Valley. Hyperion had its roots in the 80s old school East Coast accounting world. They met in kind of a May-December romance situation. They were meant for each other. The year 1998 turned out to be, they were awesome independently, but together kind of a hellacious merging of cultures. Arbor decided to be kind of traditional, take Hyperion's name, and also traditionally, Hyperion took Arbor's headquarters, their board of directors, their stock price, their leadership, and just about everything else. It was quite clear that it was the Arbor ethos, just with the Hyperion name over it all. Hyperion then gave birth to a few children of its own, Hyperion Planning and HFM. Early in the 21st century, giving rise to the concept of pre-built, what they called at the time, business performance management applications. And then Gartner later called corporate performance management applications. And then the industry then started calling it enterprise performance management. Not much unlike Angelina Jolie. Once you have a first couple of kids, you then start adopting a whole bunch. So they adopted Brio, and they adopted Raza, they adopted Upstream, they adopted Beatware, Decisioneering, Alcar. But you know what's even more fun than adopting? It's getting to rename them whatever you want. So Brio had a few different product names, mostly became interactive reporting. Raza became master data management. Upstream became financial data quality management. Still can't figure out where the Q went. Beatware became Hyperion data visualization, long forgotten product. Decisioneering became Crystal Ball, and Alcar became Hyperion strategic finance. And there are actually too many children to realistically put on this photo, because we had a whole lot of products that got renamed, some of which still exist to this day, some of which still exist in intellectual property spirit, where the knowledge of what they did is now there for everywhere, everybody that needs it. So all the products went through a whole lot of name changing, and a whole lot of them have been discontinued as well. But this is what they were called circa 2004-ish, roughly. Now, if you look at it, we have a bunch of products that we took some kind of good names like SQR and Analyzer and HAL, which is the computer that kills people in 2001, and Upstream. And we said we need to rename them all so they sound much more technological, financial, have a lot more syllables than they originally did. But we've got a problem. They are clearly from a bunch of different companies. They clearly don't look like each other at all. And this led to what I like to think of as Hyperion's midlife crisis, otherwise known as the release of System 9, which seemed like a good idea at the time. So through acquisitions and mergers and a lack of forethought, Hyperion had developed all these products that didn't talk to each other. They didn't share security. They didn't look anything like each other. And in general, they looked like they were designed by several independent companies because they were designed by several independent companies. So System 9 was supposed to solve all of that. It took a staff of highly trained infrastructure professionals to install it. And they centralized certain functions like the interface. They centralized in something called Workspace, retrieval and ad hoc reporting. Every product had its own Excel add-in. Enterprise had two, for a reason I still don't entirely understand. And they said, we can't all have different add-ins. We're going to combine that all into an add-in we call SmartView. We can't also go into every single individual product. We need to set up security. We have to have a shared services model for security. That said, the core applications were barely enhanced. The original version of 9.0 was so full of bugs it was unusable. It wasn't until version 9.3.1 when Hyperion left its midlife crisis, sold its convertible Porsche, and got an actually functional minivan. There are some things I miss about System 9, and I do like how it's all about finance and innovation, and they made their standard picture look like a polluting factory, which is why I went and found a picture of it, because it still makes me happy to look at it. There are some things that I missed on there, like one of the things at the foundation was Hyperion Application Link Advanced. I miss web analysis as part of this. I do miss Hyperion Balanced Scorecard, otherwise known as Hyperion Metrics Builder, otherwise known as Hyperion Enterprise Metrics. But we needed to go through this version as a starting point. Henry Robin did an awesome presentation on what was the worst version of Hyperion of all time and why was it System 9. But enough picking on the poor product. I'm going to give a little bit of love to a few of these. It was time for all the products to come together. The problem was it had to do some growing up from being a departmental solution where you could just put the server underneath the CFO's desks. And that is a real picture of a server sitting underneath the desk in case some of you don't remember what desktop servers look like. It had to go from being a simple server to being a multi-tiered architecture. And this was important because enterprises required it. They couldn't have rogue servers, and they needed to kind of separate those tiers. Not tiers like crying, even though that happened a lot with System 9. Tiers, T-I-E-R-S, where you took your database layer and you put that in one place, and you took your internet layer and you put that in another place. And rather than have every spreadsheet directly talk to the server, which is how the Essbase Excel add-in worked. By the way, if you know anything about hacking and denial of service attacks, that's basically a recipe for one, is to have all those machines directly being able to talk to the server. So we had to have a shared services layer in between. They eventually got it all figured out. And once they got it all figured out, and everyone's like, yeah, you actually kind of solved the System 9 thing. Your products are starting to look more unified. They're kind of enterprise class. There are still some things that you really need to do. 2007 happened. So on March 1st, 2007, I woke up to a text message from my co-founder, Eduardo Quiros, and the text said, and I quote, I still remember it, "You are now the proud co-owner of a consulting company controlled by the every whim of Larry Ellison." I wrote back and said, it's not April 1st, it's March 1st. And then I checked online. Oracle decided that it wanted to be the sugar daddy in this relationship, come in and basically say to Hyperion, we want you to keep doing what you're doing. We just want you to do a whole lot more of it. We're going to give you a lot more financial support behind the scenes. They did come in and start renaming a whole lot of products. One of the ones I'm very happy about is they had taken the horribly long name for Essbase, Hyperion System 9 Business Intelligence Plus Enterprise Analytics Services, and renamed it just down to Oracle Essbase. They took all the Hyperion products, and for the most part, they left the name Hyperion. It still is there on all the on-prem solutions. It's just not there in the cloud because a lot of modern people don't know about the history of Hyperion. So they left Hyperion on the on-prem EPM solutions, and they started building out a lot more applications. Now, it's hard to remember this, but back in 2007, Oracle had two interesting decisions that they populated to the world. One of those interesting decisions was that you should do your financial close in your general ledger. And they were saying it, SAP was saying it, Lawson, if you can remember them, was saying it. They were all saying, do your close in your GL. Well, GLs are great places for transactions. They're really lousy places to do eliminations and adjustments and aggregation and moving and creating some data around. So Oracle, effective immediately back in 2007, said, please forget everything we ever said. Do all your close in HFM. And HFM became their strategic direction for financial consolidation reporting and management. They also made another decision. Up to that point, every product that did any future looking had its own budget solution. So Oracle eBusiness Suite had its own budget solution. PeopleSoft had its own. JD Edwards had its own, which, by the way, were acquired from other companies. They bought PeopleSoft, and PeopleSoft had just bought JD Edwards. But every product had its own budgeting solution. They said, we can't keep doing that. We need one strategic direction for budgeting planning. That's going to be Hyperion planning. And a few other things they did where they adopted the Hyperion technology. One of the ones in 2007 was up to that point, if you wanted to change a hierarchy in any product, like if you wanted to change it in PeopleSoft, you went into PeopleSoft trees. If you wanted to change your hierarchy in EBS, you went and modified your chart of accounts there. And there was no central way to keep all those hierarchies in sync. And Oracle said, okay, our future direction is not to try and build out hierarchy management in every possible product. We're going to put it all into what they started calling master data management, or was called master data management. Eventually, all the way now, it's known as enterprise data management, but it's a single system of record for hierarchies. But the two big things they adopted immediately: Hyperion planning, strategic direction for budgeting and planning; HFM, strategic direction for financial consolidation. It was quite clear that all investment, Hyperion planning, financial management, those were the way of the future, until they weren't. Because in 2012, this happened. I don't know why people tend to forget about this. February 27, 2012, Oracle today announced the availability of Oracle Exalytics in-memory machine, the industry's first high-speed engineered system featuring in-memory business intelligence software and hardware to deliver extreme performance for analytic and performance management applications. That's right, Exalytics is the future. The original version came with hundreds of gigabytes of RAM. Eventually it became 2 terabytes. It came out with 7+ terabytes of hard drive. Eventually it came out with 5 terabytes of flash, 72 cores, eventually went to, I think, 144 different processors. It was quite clear that Exalytics was going to dominate. It was really powerful hardware. It was tuned for analytics. There were actually features in the system that would only optimize if you were running on an Exalytics box. It was fully integrated Oracle Red Stack from top to bottom. It was actually a pretty good price. It was quite clear that Oracle was not upcharging for this hardware. And you could actually virtualize it and turn it into about 4 different boxes because it was so powerful. And at that point, Oracle's path towards global domination was secured because appliances were all the rage for about 2.5 years. Remember that convertible Porsche that we bought about a decade ago? It was time to drive that convertible into the cloud. Now, I do get a kick out of this quote from October 2014. Keep in mind, October 2014. In the last 6 months, we moved all of what used to be called Hyperion to the cloud, but we've given them a lot more capabilities. It runs faster. It is automatically set up for you. It is cheaper. Now, there is a lot of truth in this statement. It's on the last half. It runs faster. It's automatically set up for you. It is cheaper. It was not true in October of 2014 that there were a ton more capabilities. Enterprise Performance Reporting Cloud Services did come out in 2014. The first version of planning, PBCS, did come out in 2014. All of what used to be called Hyperion did not go to the cloud in 2014. But Larry is awesome because he's got this kind of reality distortion field where he just wills it into existence. So once he said it, they had to make it true. What's interesting about that is Larry was against the cloud in 2013 until he was for it. And what happened was they released PBCS on Valentine's Day, February 14th, 2014, and it became the fastest selling product across all of Oracle, on-prem or cloud. Last time I checked, it was still the #2 selling product on the cloud. There are over 500 cloud products over there at Oracle. So Larry went from 2013 saying we are not a cloud-based company to 2014 just saying cloud constantly. And what happened that changed his mind was PBCS. It was EPM. It was Hyperion. So their strategic direction became stop doing servers and competing for commodities because we can't upcharge it very much, or people will just go build it on their own with bare metal, to let's sell the cloud. And Oracle pivoted from being an on-prem company to being a cloud-based company. Now, what was interesting about it is companies weren't necessarily ready for the cloud when Oracle started selling it. However, people were. If you look down at your iPhone or your Android device, if you're smarter than I am, this is a cloud access device. It's amazing what this thing will do. It'll take messages, it'll play music, it'll show videos, it'll teach you a language, it'll give you a place to look at your calendar, a place to read your emails, a place to store your pictures, a place to take pictures. Turns out this thing even contacts other people using voice, which is not something we've done in a while. As consumers, we were completely okay with not knowing where any servers were that we were talking to. We know that we had a cloud access device in our product. Companies weren't quite as ready for it. If I may quote Marty McFly, guess you guys aren't ready for that, but your kids are going to love it. Companies came a little slower to the game. So while PBCS sold really, really quickly and companies definitely wanted to start pushing planning information to the cloud, they were slower to bring everything else. So Oracle in, I believe it was summer of 2016, stopped selling Hyperion. I think it was June 1st of 2016. I don't think it was 2015. June 1st of 2016 said, we are going to stop selling the on-prem solutions. If you already own it, awesome, go ahead and keep it. But all of our effort is going to be over on the cloud side. And there were logical reasons to do that. It makes it easier to expand around the world. You don't need to add a data center in every place. Let that be somebody else's problems. Some of the prices just plummeted. Profitability and cost management cloud services, which is now part of something else, I'll explain in a second, but profitability and cost management cloud services, when it was sold on-prem, the product was $25,000 per user plus 22% annual maintenance, meaning you paid $25,000 up front, and then for the rights to keep using what you already paid for, you paid another $5,000. I say per month, $25,000 per year or upfront purchase, and then another $5,000 per year in maintenance fees to keep using it. That product, when it became PCMCS, dropped to $500 per user per month. Meaning there was no upfront cost, there was no servers, and you paid $6,000 per year just for that user. It's now part of Oracle EPM Enterprise, and everything is $500 total. Per user per month. So once Oracle was able to scale that out and run all the servers, the cost started dramatically dropping. So it was cheaper for everybody else. Also, it turns out people don't think patching is fun. So the average amount of time that we found between when customers did their last patch was on average, depending on the industry, 3 to 7 years between servers getting patched. And hackers don't give you 3 to 7 years grace period to see if you've patched that issue with your server. They're hacking you in that 3 to 7 year period. So we all determined that we were ready for the cloud, just maybe not as fast as Oracle was. But Oracle just started flying things in like you wouldn't believe. So yeah, it started in February 2014 with PBCS. Over on the BI side, we launched Business Intelligence Cloud Services, or BICS, which I always thought was a cool acronym, Data Visualization Cloud Service, Enterprise Performance Reporting Cloud Service, which, yes, it does have a new name. Account reconciliation cloud service. At that point, I think we're up to 2015. Enterprise planning and budgeting cloud service, I think we're up to 2016 at that point. FCCS also 2016. Profitability and cost management 2017. Tax reporting cloud services. OAC Essbase came out in, I believe, 2017 as well. Those separate cloud products for analytics, where you had BIC separate from data visualization, those all came together as Oracle Analytics Cloud. We created Enterprise Data Management Cloud Services, I believe, at the end of 2018. I might be off on a year. EPRCS got renamed to Narrative Reporting, and then they just bundled everything all together. Now, this was an interesting shift that I could probably go on for about 20 minutes, but I won't. Way back in the early days of cloud, people thought you would go buy products separately, like Lego blocks. Like you'd go buy your planning from this company, and you go get your account reconciliation from this company, and you go get your consolidation from this company. Well, turns out if you buy Legos from all kinds of different companies, they don't make like the Millennium Falcon Lego set. You end up making those things you created when you were 4 years old that kind of look like houses, but with different colored bricks. So Oracle said, is there a way we can just give everything away for a reasonable price? So the standard one, still to this day, is $250 per user per month, and the enterprise one's $500. OAC Essbase, and I'll get to that in a second, became Essbase 19C and sort of spun off out of the side of Oracle Analytics Cloud. So this is essentially how it all has come together at this point. And then advanced to Kscope last year in Seattle. Last year in Seattle, do I have that right? Was it really only a year ago that we actually had in-person conferences? Essbase decided to move out of its parents' basement and live with its soulmate, the Oracle Database Division. I remember I was there when they were giving the Essbase roadmap session, and I think Mike Larimer and Karen Zubitz and some others, and they said, Essbase is a standalone database, and it will be there for all the future that I'm aware of. And I got really worried because I'm like, okay, this is real, but that I'm aware of worried me for like a little bit. It turned out that the future is rather grand and bright for Essbase, which is why we had an awesome Essbase roadmap that has come out. Essbase has now become the center of our analytics universe, serving all of the masses. The world of Oracle revolves around Essbase. Essbase has actually done really quite well for itself now that it's moved out of the basement. Now that it's a standalone database, it's behind GL on Oracle's GL Cloud. It's behind territory management, customer experience, project analytics. All of those are Essbase cubes behind the scenes because Oracle finally realized that not only do they own a database in Essbase, they own the best multidimensional database on planet Earth. Essbase also can be used standalones. They already had 500 plus customers that were running it over on an OAC Essbase world. They also have it as part of all of the EPM applications, whether it's planning consolidation or tax reporting profitability. It's Essbase behind the scenes, and there are now over 15,000 customer instances of EPM. And then we still have our 10,000 plus customers running some form of it on-prem. Now, of all those things on there, one of the things that's interesting, if you total all up, you get over to something like 28,000 plus servers that are running this. You don't get a ton of people running standalone Essbase yet in the cloud. For whatever reason, that's kind of one of the holdovers where people just haven't moved out those massive databases yet. But a lot of people predicted back when the cloud started that kind of the last couple of things that people would fully move to the cloud would be large databases / data warehouses. So this doesn't exactly shock me that we still have that much on-prem sitting out there. EPM has done very, very well for itself. So even though there's kind of been a divorce between EPM and analytics, they've stayed really good friends. They still spend Christmas together, Thanksgiving. They're there taking care of their Essbase child and making sure that Essbase is part of everything that they do. But EPM Enterprise has thrived as an independent application portion. They've taken all their apps, they now work together. They now plan in a place that makes sense, and they financial close in a place that makes sense. They are doing reporting on top of it. They can pull data from everywhere. Oracle Analytics Cloud, who has never met a word they didn't want to put on a slide, is also doing really, really happily as well. For a while, Oracle couldn't complete a sentence without saying cloud somewhere in it. But they have been showing some love to customers who are still maintaining their own on-prem servers. So let's talk briefly about on-prem, just in case you were like, is Edward ever going to talk about that? For a while, we saw nothing. There was Essbase 11.124 that came out in 2015, and it was supposed to end support, premier support, at the end of this year, in December, and it was going to fall to what's called sustaining support, or as most Oracle customers call it, life support, where you're paying just to basically stay on a breathing machine, a ventilator. So all of a sudden, there was some new love that came out at the tail end of 2019. That was 11.2. It has been out for a year now. There are already a couple of major patches that came out for it. It was mostly about getting current with other backend technologies, getting current with new versions of Windows, like Windows 2019, other operating systems like Linux 7, AIX 7.2, databases like Oracle 12.2, SQL Server 2016 plus, Java JDK 1.8. So it was mostly about let's get it current so that people can keep using it. And we were curious, like, is this a stopgap thing? Are they really just going to support this for maybe a year or two? It has now been announced that it's supported through at least December of 2031. And Matt Bradley said, #Safe Harbor, that next year they're probably going to extend it until December of 2032. Now, a couple things about this. It does still use Essbase 11.124 inside of it. So people that think there is an 11.2 of Essbase, there's not. There's an 11.124 of Essbase. There are later editions of Essbase. There's a 12G version of Essbase. There's a 12.221 version of Essbase. There's a 19C version of Essbase. There's an Essbase coming out in the next month or two, #Safe Harbor, called Essbase 21C. All those newer versions right now are not what is inside of 11.2. It is basically an upgrade to your HFM, to your planning, to most of your applications you had in 11.124. There are some big things that are missing. And I'm going to cover this. I've got a session in an hour on busting some upgrade myths. One of those is that you have EPMA in 11.2. You don't. But a lot of other things disappeared as well. Workforce planning, things like that are gone in 11.2. I give credit to Oracle for this version because what they had to do is take developers that were working on the cloud and had them come back and do an 11.2 upgrade because Oracle is cloud developing everywhere. There is still an 11.1.2.4. You have a very narrow window. So while Matt Bradley was kind enough to say during his kickoff keynote for this conference, yeah, it's 11.2, good for 2031. I'm probably even going to extend it and give you another 10-year look starting in 2021. He said, but we have no intention of extending 11.1.2.4. So you got a narrow window to either upgrade to 11.2, which is an out-of-place upgrade, or get to the cloud. 11.1.2.4 by the end of next year will be more than 5 years old, and it's just got a lot of problems in it without bashing on it. So it's your call now. Oracle used to just kind of be all about the stick. They said, get to the cloud or we're going to be really, really mean to you. Now it's about carrot. Look at all these great things you're going to get if you go to the cloud, but if you want to stay where you are, that's totally fine. We're going to give you a new release. It's basically a technical upgrade. Originally, they were thinking they were going to add some features in 11.2. I've noticed those seem to have fallen off the roadmap. So things that we thought, oh, they're going to take this cloud functionality, they're going to push it back to on-prem. They're not. Their stance is that 11.2 is for people that are happy with what they have. If they want new features and functions, that's the carrot part. Go to EPM Cloud, where new features just show up once a month. So what's next? That's the present. Where are we going? Now, I'm going to make some predictions about the future, but I want to be clear. Anyone on Earth who said in 2015, this is where I'll be in 5 years, got it wrong. We will be telling our grandkids about the year that was 2020. But there are some things, even though the year is in upheaval, to put it mildly, there are some things we can prepare for. There are likely changes that we know are coming. We're almost to the end of this year, and you're here today because you want to learn about the future. You want to educate yourself, and maybe it's educating yourself on the cloud so you can move to the cloud in 2021. Or maybe it's educating yourself and preparing a plan to revamp your forecasting process, to be more about scenario planning. Whatever it is, you have this brief window while you're stuck at home looking out your window. You have this brief window to plan for your 2021 moves. President Eisenhower once said, "I've always found that plans are useless, but planning is indispensable." It's less about getting it right, and it's more about getting yourself into the mindset, getting yourself into the process of thinking ahead. Far too many companies think that plans are about the details you generate by planning. As soon as you encounter the enemy, which at the moment is coronavirus, that detailed plan is going to go out the window. But thank goodness you plan for a whole lot of different scenarios. The next decade is about FP&A departments going from steering the car by looking in the rearview mirror to actually looking out the dashboard. It's about pivoting from looking backwards at what happened to looking ahead to what's going to happen. I'm calling it right now, the Roaring 20s, once they start roaring, it's going to be the decade of change. And we have to plan for that change. And then we have to take those plans and we have to do something with them. 2020 taught us that if you only plan for one number, your number is going to be wrong. There are too many potential scenarios. If you know what day coronavirus is going to be under control and you know what day the economy is going to be back to normal, you should immediately create an investment firm called Nostradamus Hathaway. We don't know what's going to happen. We do have a range of possibilities, because the times, if I may quote Bob Dylan, they sure are a-changin'. In times of massive upheaval, the departments that crunch the numbers, whether that's FP&A, accounting, IT, a BI department, those departments go from being useless overhead to being the most important departments in the company. Why? It's because during times of change, like now, like the 2020s will be, during times of change, people crave information. Oracle offers a lot of tools that can help companies do analytics, do reporting, do planning. I'm going to give you, no matter what you're using, I'm going to give you some advice on things that you should be doing and preparing for in times of change. If you don't have these 5 things in place, go put them in place now. Make that your 2021 strategy. First of all, scenario planning. I've been preaching this for 15 years. I'm really glad that everyone suddenly started doing it. It's really important to have plans ready at hand, not just a set of numbers that look really bad right now, but a set of actions. If a situation occurs, we will take B actions to deal with it. You also need strategic modeling. This helps you figure out what your constraints are, when you're going to violate your debt covenants, when you're going to use up all your cash, when you're going to need to update your resume, when you're going to need greater capital lending, what opportunities do you have for expansion? What areas can you look towards as the world is changing so that you can set yourself up to take advantage of it? Profitability and cost management, please don't wait on this one. You have products, you have services, you have locations, you have customers that are making you money. You have to find out which 20% of those are resulting in 80% of your profitability. But you also need to find out what products you need to be stopping, what locations you need to be closing, what the 20% of your customers are that are costing you 80% of your profitability. Then you have to take those unprofitable money drains and you have to stop doing them now while you still have liquidity. You have to accelerate your close cycle. We have to be able to report faster. We have to do it in a distributed way because it used to be the way we got closed down was by standing up and talking to each other over cubicle walls about why you need to hand me this, you need to go this. We need to figure out how to do that in a remote type world. And narrative reporting. A lot of people think that narrative reporting should only be used after the fact to explain why budget and forecasts, why actuals miss budget and forecast. My advice, think differently. Use narrative reporting ahead of time to communicate those scenarios that you have planned. So use it as a vehicle to open a dialogue. So you can communicate about if this occurs, this is how we're going to respond. And then once it's clear what scenario you're in, use narrative reporting to communicate that information out. Focusing on the concept of planning for a second, it's not enough to come up with a plan. We have to dive into that plan. We need analytics to convert that data into something that leads to physical actions. If we want to become a data-driven organization, we have to take terabytes and petabytes of data. We have to convert them to information. We have to deliver that information in real time. We have to combine that data from multiple areas into combined reports and analysis. For instance, we need to take our departmental P&Ls that haven't really changed in 50 years, and we have to divide those dollars by the headcount in each department so we can more easily compare spending by person in each department. That push towards more and more real-time data that we can consume anywhere in whatever format we want isn't new. But in the roaring 20s, that drive, that desire for information, the need to get the right information to the right people at the right time, it's critical. Or at least it will be critical once we can shake hands again. Take the time while you can't shake hands and focus on real time, focus on mobile, focus on self-service, focus on data visualization, and then prepare yourself for the radical changes that are going to be brought about by artificial intelligence, by big data. You have to take this time, because this is our time, if I may quote Breakfast Club, you have to take this time to determine what your analytics vision is for the 2020s. Vision for the 2020s. Remember when having 2020 vision was a good thing? I'm thinking like the eye doctors are going to need to rename it. Anyway, this is why you need Oracle Analytics. We can take and summarize petabytes of data easily and quickly. We can do it in real time. We can see patterns, we can see trends, we can see issues through visualizations, and even predict the future by using the past to create trend and forecast lines. We can put the power of analytics in all of our end users' hands. We can create dashboards in under a minute. We can use whatever data is there at the user's fingertips. We can find new ways to interact with the data, find correlations between the data that we haven't seen before. And then we can tell a data story. We can explain how we got to today. We can explain how we're going to get out of it tomorrow. In the future, the computers will perform most of the data analysis. And if you're thinking that's going to put us out of a job, it's not. It's actually going to leave us time for us to take action on those tangible steps we need to do to improve our business. And in case you're thinking there's no way the computers are going to handle most of the number crunching for us, I encourage you to look at baseball, look at sports with their sabermetrics and statistical analysis. They thought that computers would never be able to replace scouts. Well, now it's about taking the information that the computers generate and figuring out how we're going to change the baseball playing field. All the investment bankers thought that you could only determine what stock you needed to get on a hunch, but now they're data driven. They have quants with algorithms that are determining what should be purchased, and then other people are deciding if they're going to take action on that information. We thought back in 1985, when they made the first Back to the Future movie, followed by the okay sequel Back to the Future 2 and the most awesome end to a trilogy ever in Back to the Future 3, we thought that some of these things are just pipe dreams. That was Marty on his hoverboard in 2015. And by 2015, we have somebody actually going and hovering and floating over water. It's not quite the same thing in the sense that there actually is this sort of tube that's attached to the guy on the right. But all those things we thought were going to be a pipe dream 30 years out, we've actually realized a lot of those. I like this quote from JFK. The Chinese use 2 brushstrokes to write the word crisis. One brushstroke stands for danger, the other for opportunity. In a crisis, be aware of the danger, but recognize the opportunity. By the way, I don't know if this is true or not, that actually is how the Chinese write the word crisis, but I love the concept that while we are dealing with the world going into a period of upheaval, is there a way that we can find opportunity? are there companies that will be formed coming out of coronavirus? Are there companies that are demonetizing, that are digitizing, that are democratizing, that are taking those things that used to require on-prem and everyone physically getting together and having to see and touch things and saying, is there a way that we can make it more virtual? So our key question that we have to answer is, what is your plan? What is your roadmap? The world is changing rapidly. What are you going to do to keep the competitive advantage in today's uncertain world? What are you going to do to fight back? It's kind of, in my mind, like when George makes the decision at the end of Back to the Future to punch Biff Tannen. Oh, hashtag spoiler alert. You have to decide what things you're going to punch over the next few years. May I suggest coronavirus, maybe political campaigns, on-prem data centers, all definitely need punching. You don't have to tackle everything at once, but you have to decide where to begin. Look at all that data you have and figure out, how are we going to take and deliver it to our users? And it shouldn't be that we force them all down one specific reporting path. We have to figure out, people that want to explore data in Excel, let them explore it in Excel. People that want to go print a report out, let them go print something out or virtually print it out and look at a pixel perfect report online. Let them consume it with mobile. Let the artificial intelligence and machine learning dig through it all. Figure out how to support those end users. We're going to come up with better planning solutions. We're going to come up with more analytics. It's going to slice and dice that data. How we're going to deliver that through a dialogue. How we're going to make sure all the numbers tie so that the humans don't have to do it. How we're going to make sure that we consolidate that information so we have one single version of the truth. How we're going to take that consolidated information, allocate it all the way down so we have profitability at the most granular level. How we're going to make sure our statutory reporting is good, but also our reporting to the government, because they like to send us big bills for penalties and fees. All of those products standing together, we need to use enterprise data management to make sure that all those hierarchies stay in sync. And we've got a whole lot of other planning areas as well. And the good news for your Essbase lovers in the past, everything up there that has a cube next to it has Essbase sitting behind the scenes. This is my final opportunity to speak to everybody. So I wanted to take a moment to thank our, last time I checked, we were up to 1,488 people who attended Solutions 2020, either live or by watching videos of the sessions. I want to say a special thanks to our 75 plus presenters from companies all around the world who have taken time out of their lives to take what they've learned and passed on to all of us. This conference was an opportunity for partners who often compete with each other, partners, Oracle, and most importantly, Oracle's customers, to come together. When you look at the logos that are up there, the fact that everybody has come together to present this information, if you didn't think like, wow, I thought some of those people hated each other, we don't. Because at the end of the day, we're all in this together. And while I give COVID-19 a really hard time, we wouldn't have been able to create this virtual conference in any other year. I don't know what the future holds, but I know that if we all stick together, if we keep doing joint events like this, the future is going to be pretty great. To wrap up today, I'm going to be doing a screening of our Hyperion musical from 2007, Eddie and the Consultants, a System 9 musical. The two lead performers in that musical will be joining us to kick it off, tell some stories. They'll be giving DVD commentaries when there are no laughs and just uncomfortable pauses in the movie. When there are laughs, they'll probably keep quiet. So they're going to be joining us to kick it off. I know they're going to be joining us because I'm one of the two lead performers. The other one's Danielle White. I hope strongly you can join us at the end of the day. I want to say thank you to everyone from the bottom of my heart for being the strongest user community of any products anywhere. Everybody, have a great last day at Solutions 2020.